Good evening and welcome to the Diamond Newsdesk at 8. We bring you the latest from stories featured on DiamondTVZambia.com. You can also follow us on Diamond TV online, on Facebook and on X at Diamond TV Zambia. Up next, the headlines. The Zambian government and former President Edgar Lungu's family resolve funeral dispute. Final arrangements for state funeral and public viewing have been set. Poor roads and lack of clinic force Mazabuka's Chisika residents to rely on traditional remedies. And ZRA seizes over 40,000 litres of smuggled ethanol in Livingston and prevents 1.3 million kwacha revenue loss. Join me for these stories and more in detail shortly.
This is the Diamond Newsdesk at 8 with Chisika.
And now the news in detail. The Zambian government and the family of former President Edgar Lungu have resolved earlier disagreements over his funeral arrangements. Family spokesperson Makebi Zulu made the announcement during a joint press briefing between the Lungu family and the government held in South Africa on Sunday, June 15, 2025. Mr. Zulu said the body will be transported from South Africa to Zambia on Wednesday, June 18, 2025. Aboard a private charter provided by well-wishers accompanied by members of the former president's family. Members of the public will be allowed to pay their last respects at Mulungushi Conference Center on Thursday, Friday and Saturday. A state funeral expected to be attended by various dignitaries will be held at the same venue on Sunday, June 22. Mr. Zulu also disclosed that a valedictory ceremony will be held at the Supreme Court grounds in Lusaka, followed by a church service at the Shore grounds, presided over by Bishop Alec Banda.
The funeral program for former Zambian President Edgar Lungu has been finalized following weeks of delicate negotiations between the government and the Lungu family. Both parties have now reached a consensus.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. You can still thank you.
President Hakainde Hichilema is expected to preside over the state funeral. The body of the late president will be repatriated from South Africa, where he died on June 5, 2025, and is scheduled to arrive in Lusaka on Wednesday, June 18th.
I wish to put it on record that the government of the Republic of Zambia officially granted passage for the sixth president to come to South Africa for treatment. So the passage was with the full knowledge of the government of the Republic of Zambia, and no officer was given any instruction to stand in the way of the coming of the president. Secondly, efforts were made, again these are on record, to support the president while he was in South Africa. However, with the history and the relationships, this did not come to pass. Now, in accordance with the family's wishes and the dignity befitting the service of the sixth president to our nation, a state funeral shall be held and shall be presided over by the President of the Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, culminating in the former president's burial on Monday, 23rd June 2025.
Upon arrival, a series of events have been lined up ahead of his burial. Family spokesperson Makebi Zulu has outlined the program, which reflects both national protocol and the family's wishes.
The following has been the compromise. Number one, that the body of the late President Lungu shall be transported together with the family from Lanseria Airport in South Africa to Zambia on Wednesday, 18th June 2025, using a private charter made available to the family by well wishers. Secondly, that following the arrival and receipt of the body by family members in Lusaka, full military honors will be conducted at the Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, after which the body shall be taken to the funeral house in Chifwema, where it will lie instead. Thirdly, that the body of the late former president will be taken to Mulungushi International Conference Center on Thursday 19th June, Friday 20th June, and Saturday 21st June to enable members of the public to pay their last respects from 09 hours to 16 hours, after which it shall be returned on all days to the funeral house in Chifwema to lie instead. That the state funeral that will host foreign dignitaries shall be held at Mulungushi Conference Center on Sunday 22nd June, and the body of former President Lungu shall be taken to the venue and returned to Chifwema after the event, where it will lie instead. That a valedictory session will be held at the Supreme Court grounds in honor of former President Lungu, a lawyer by profession, on Monday, 23rd June, to be followed by a church service on the same day in the showgrounds in Lusaka, one that would be conducted by His Grace Archbishop Alik Banda. That the body of the late former president shall always lie instead at the funeral house in Chifwema and only be taken away for the above stated functions during the day, after which it shall be returned to the funeral house every day to lie instead at the conclusion of these events.
The Zambia Center for Transparency and Responsible Leadership, a youth-led civil society organization, has welcomed the repatriation, describing it as a step in the right direction.
President Lungu is the man who served this country diligently, and therefore it is very vital that his remains are taken back to this country where he was president, so that he can be mourned by the people of Zambia.
With Mr. Lungu's passing, Zambia now has no surviving former president. All former heads of states are deceased. Before ascending to the highest office, Mr. Lungu served in several key ministerial positions, including as Minister of Justice and Minister of Defense. He became president following the death of Michael Sata in 2014, winning the 2015 presidential by-election and the 2016 general election. He served as Zambia's sixth president from 2015 to 2021 and remained an active political figure until his death. Mr. Lungu was married to former First Lady Esther Lungu and is survived by several children, among them Tasila, Chieso and Deliso Lungu. Daras Jonya, Diamond News.
Now, stakeholders on the Copper Belt have welcomed the agreement between the Lungu family and the Zambian government regarding the repatriation and burial of former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, who died on June 5, 2025 in Pretoria, South Africa. The family and the government have now finalized funeral arrangements that align with some of the former president's final wishes. According to the agreement, his body will be flown back to Zambia on June 18.
The announcement that the government has finally reached an agreement with the Lungu family on the funeral arrangement for the late former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu has elated stakeholders on the Copper Belt province. Social and political anthropologist James Msonda has emphasized the importance of this agreement to the Zambian people who have been waiting in limbo for the burial date of the late President Edgar Chagwa Lungu.
It's a commendable job because Zambians needed closure on this. We needed rest. We needed to mourn our former president and bring closure to misfortune that we suffered collectively as a country. However, I would like to observe that we hope that the agreement does not in any way seek to undermine any judicial processes that have been underway. There shouldn't be a situation where the Lungu funeral is used to undermine justice.
Futurepreneur Zambia Organization Executive Director Martin Kampamba has urged the two parties in the agreement to abide to what they have agreed to in order to allow a peaceful burial of the late president.
My caution is let the two parties take the precaution of what has been agreed to. Whatever has been put on a paper and agreed to, let each party bear that understanding without compromising. The challenge that may come is when, after agreeing, certain things start changing, will bring up problems. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm hopeful that the agreement will be followed to the latter, not until we put our president, former president, to rest.
Meanwhile, the government has announced an extension to the national mourning period for the late former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu to June 23, 2025. Rogan Labika for Diamond News, Cooperatives Province.
Meanwhile, United Kwacha Alliance chairperson Sakwiba Sikota has criticized the government's handling of the death of former Republican President Edgar Lungu. Mr. Sikota expressed disappointment, stating that President Hakainde Hichilema failed to show genuine leadership from the onset of the national mourning period for the late statesman. Speaking on a Costa program, Mr. Sikota described the sequence of events as toxic and mechanical, lacking the empathy and compassion expected during such a significant national loss.
Immediately that had happened.
Was he mandated to?
Well, you're talking about a sixth president, somebody whom now they're claiming they own. So they can't have it both ways. Because of that claim they have, they were obliged to, surely. Otherwise, what's the basis of their claim? Surely they were obliged to. There should have been immediately a declaration of national mourning. Then you wouldn't have had other people even saying they're declaring national mourning. The state should have taken control and responsibility from the word go.
Isn't it also
and
the moral?
Failed.
Isn't it also the moral obligation of both the family? Yes, they're in mourning. His party, like you said, to also compromise and take into consideration a win-win position in that, like you said, we're not dealing with just an ordinary person.
And the family did do that. The family did do that. In spite of, there was those unfortunate statements attributed to even the army. You know, you had a very toxic situation brought about. You know, I'm trying to put myself in that position which was there. Even when addressing the nation, as he did finally, to bring down the tensions, do it from the heart. Don't make it seem so mechanical. From the heart. Live and edited, not that, no, from the heart. If you really are, it's from the heart. You do not start off by saying, my condolences go to the bereaved family. That is cold. I say it's cold because...
For more on this story, you can watch the Costa program at 21:15 hours. Just now, let's take a look at the weather forecast for tonight and have our first break. I'll be back shortly with more news. Don't go away. Thank you for staying with us. Residents of Chisika area in Firewood Ward, Mazabuka district are urgently appealing to the government to build a health center in their community. Poor roads cut off the area during the rainy season, making it difficult for people to access health care services. Without a nearby clinic, many patients turn to traditional remedies. Pregnant women often deliver at home because they cannot reach proper medical care, putting their lives and their babies' lives at risk. Residents told Diamond News that the lack of a health facility and impassable roads during rains prevent them from getting timely medical help. They call on the government to act quickly to save lives.
Access to health services in Chisika area of Firewood Ward in Mazabuka district of Southern Province remains a significant challenge. Residents have appealed to government to consider constructing a health facility in the area, citing the difficulties they face when traveling to Mazabuka General Hospital. We are therefore appealing to the relevant authorities and developmental partners to prioritize the construction of an all-weather road and local health facility.
Kuti no hulumende mebo angu wonse ndilibo ugulumba agulomba.
During the rain season, the road becomes completely impassable. As a result, we are forced to push bicycles while transporting patients to nearby Perusa. Some parents explain that due to poor state of the road, many parents are unable to reach health facilities. As a result, they often resort to traditional medicine. Well-expectant mothers are forced to deliver at home. Due to these challenges, accessing health care during the rain season is nearly impossible. Many residents are left with no choice but to rely on traditional medicine even in serious medical situations. Meanwhile, during his recent visit to Southern Province, the Ministry of Health Permanent Secretary confirmed that Southern Province is expected to receive 10 to 11 main hospitals. The residents now hope that Chisika will be among the areas considered for a new health facility. Helga Chibwe, Diamond News, Mazabuka district in Southern Province.
Residents of Kwacha Ward in Mufulira's Kankoyo area have voiced a growing frustration over the council's failure to clear blocked drainages filled with stagnant, contaminated water believed to be coming from nearby industries. Despite repeatedly reporting the issue to local authorities, residents say they have only received empty promises while the situation continues to deteriorate. The blocked drainages have become breeding grounds for mosquitoes and pose a serious risk of disease outbreaks. Environmental defender Martin Kampamba added his voice to the concerns, stressing that continuous exposure to industrial waste in residential areas is not only dangerous but unacceptable. When contacted for a response, Mufulira Mayor Tanayeli Kamanga assured residents that the council will address the issue soon.
Have not paid attention to the concerns of blocked drainages that are endangering their livelihoods.
Uyu mufolo uyu abantu mo bare tapame shia kutora matoire tero utawaba tafia bagwino efiawo kuashisha elo bamondi nganga baichino kusamba bare samba mukutifia leta amalwere.
These blocked sewers contain suspected contaminated water from the local industries. Kwacha Ward Development Committee Chairperson Pomtale is not happy that the situation has not received any attention despite several reports to the local authority.
Even the civic authority is aware about this, but people here, section F, especially F2 in particular, they are subjected to harsh conditions. This has now become a breeding area for mosquitoes, of which malaria will be a talk of the day. So I'm appealing to the civic authority to quickly sort out this issue in the soonest possible time.
And the youth-based organization Futurepreneurs Zambia is concerned over the matter.
This is a disaster to our environment, and it is a disaster to our community, which is Kwacha. Most of all, the Bombay that demarcates the plant as well as the community is a disaster to the community as well, because the water that comes from the plant carries the waste that is coming from the plant, polluting this environment. We call the Mufulira Municipal Council, the Department of Health, to act as quickly as possible before the disaster comes to our community.
Meanwhile, the local authority of Mufulira has promised to look into the matter in the soonest possible time. Rogan Labika for Diamond News, Copperbelt Province.
Now, the Zambia Revenue Authority ZRA has intercepted an Interlink truck carrying 32 bulk tanks and 40 drums of smuggled alcohol ethanol at the Zawa checkpoint in Livingston. ZRA Manager for Corporate Communications, Oliver Nzala, says the truck and its cargo were immediately escorted to the ZRA Enforcement Center in Livingston for thorough inspection. Following verification, the consignment was confirmed to be smuggled goods. The seized items include 32 tanks, each carrying 1,000 liters of ethanol, 40 drums of 210 liters each, and 10 buckets of aluminium powder weighing 25 kilograms each. According to Mr. Nzala, the attempted smuggling represents a revenue loss of approximately 1.3 million kwacha. The entire ethanol consignment, along with the truck which entered Zambia through the Kazungula border, has been seized.
The Zambia Revenue Authority again would like to come to the public and remind all taxpayers, including the general public, that cases of smuggling, we are aware that they are on the rise, and the authority is putting everything in place to ensure that we work with various stakeholders to bring this to an end. The revenue loss from this smuggling activity amounts to about 1.3 million kwacha. And like we have emphasized in the past, smuggling is bad for the economy. Smuggling is also does disadvantage those that are involved in this vice, because you tend to lose the goods. You also lose the vessel that has been used for smuggling. So in this case, we're talking about the truck and the goods themselves. So the truck and the ethanol have been seized and will be forfeited to the state. Again, would like to urge everyone to ensure that they do the right things, make the correct declarations, pay the rightful duties and taxes to the government of the Republic of Zambia, and we will facilitate trade for you so that you can continue doing business. For those that decide to indulge in smuggling, we are making it tougher for them, because we are employing a lot of strategies to ensure that this vice that deprives the government of the much needed revenue is brought to an end. We need to ensure that everyone pays their fair share of taxes, unlike engaging in smuggling, which distorts a lot.
You're watching the Diamond News Desk at 8. Just now, let's take another break. I'll be back shortly with more news. Don't go away. Thank you for staying with us. The Ministry of Community Development says it is conducting a conclusive assessment of households that were on the Drought Emergency Cash Transfer ECT program, which ended in May. Social Cash Transfer Assistant National Coordinator Maximilian Bwalia said Zambia currently has 1.3 million households on the regular Social Cash Transfer SCT program, while a total of 2.2 million were supported during the drought response. He said former ECT beneficiaries do not need to reapply as the ministry already has their details. The assessment will determine who qualifies to transition to the regular SCT program. Earlier, Minister Doreen Mwamba directed that vulnerable groups such as persons with disabilities, the elderly and lactating mothers be prioritized for regular support.
The Social Cash Transfer Program continues to be a vital lifeline for many vulnerable households across Zambia. With the Drought Emergency Cash Transfer Program now concluded, the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services says efforts are underway to assess which households will transition to the regular SCT program. Social Cash Transfer Assistant National Coordinator Maximilian Walia says the country currently supports 1.3 million households under the regular program, and at the height of the drought response, that number rose to 2.2 million.
Emergency cash transfers to over 2.2 million households. So we had a vertical expansion, meaning that those that were on regular social cash transfer, 1.3 million, we added a top-up to the social cash transfer and that transition to ensure that those that were on the temporal emergency cash transfer who were included temporarily as a result of the drought response should transition into the regular social cash transfer. So districts are already having, developing plans in terms of enumeration, in terms of assessment of those that really qualify to join the regular social cash transfers. So we are that process has already started.
He says a thorough vulnerability assessment is now being carried out to identify those who still need continued support. Mr. Walia stressed that there is no need for beneficiaries to resubmit their details as the ministry already has their information in the database.
They have information in our database, so they will be assessed, so they will be visited by our district staff and collect further information. Remind you, I think during the emergency response, the information was collected quite quickly, and they were subjected to a quick assessment, so that they are included in the on the program, the emergency response. So this particular exercise will include now a full assessment of the households. They don't have to register again, but they will be visited because we have the information, so they will be visited for a full assessment.
The cash transfer program remains a crucial tool in reducing poverty and promoting social protection for thousands of households, including persons with disabilities, the elderly and mothers. Cherish Siwate for Diamond News.
Now, government has disbursed over 2.5 million kwacha in empowerment grants to 64 youth and women cooperatives in Chilenge district, affirming its commitment to decentralization and inclusive development. The grants were handed over during an official ceremony officiated by Luapula Province Permanent Secretary, Ms. Prudence Chainama, who described the moment as a practical demonstration of President Hakainde Hichilema's vision for an empowered and economically active citizenry. The Empowerment Initiative is designed to boost local enterprise development through cooperatives. Details in the following report.
Across the country, communities are beginning to feel the effects of decentralization in real terms. In Chilenge district, 64 cooperatives have received 2.5 million kwacha in government grants aimed at boosting local enterprise and livelihoods. The funding, provided through the Constituency Development Fund, prioritizes both economic empowerment and climate resilience. The grants you have received is not for an individual, but for a cooperative, and it should be treated as such. We needed to ensure that we put this money to good use, and that is the desire of the government. Local leaders have urged recipients to use the grants responsibly, warning against personal gain at the expense of collective progress. We are rest assured that these cooperatives will put to good use the monies that they have received from government. Among beneficiaries, hope is high, but so is the understanding that discipline and accountability will determine the outcome. We commend government for this initiative, for looking into our plight. Through this support, we can better our livelihoods. Whether this marks the beginning of lasting transformation or just another fleeting moment of promise would depend on what happens next. Kalombe Kapambwe, Diamond News.
Let's take our last break. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us, and now for the rest of the news. Salifyanji Center of Hope in Chiwombo district is educating over 200 orphans and vulnerable children despite facing severe shortages of desks, books and basic learning materials. Well-wishers have helped the school with exercise books, pencils and rice for the school feeding program. While the support is appreciated, staff say more assistance is urgently needed. With the nearest government school several kilometers away, Salifyanji remains the only accessible learning center for many, highlighting the wider challenges facing rural education in Zambia.
The heart of Chiwombo District, Central Province, Salifyanji Center of Hope is waging a quiet battle, providing education to orphans and underprivileged children. At Salifyanji, teaching is a daily challenge made even harder by the shortage of nearly everything.
When it comes to our feeding program, because we have less money to manage to buy food, and when it comes to stationery, even paying teachers, all those are our challenges here.
The school supports over 200 orphans and underprivileged children, yet it only has 2 dedicated teachers doing their best to educate in a makeshift classroom with limited books and no furniture. With the nearest public school several kilometers away, Salifyanji remains the only hope for many children in the area. To ease the burden, PMG Lusaka today stepped in with a donation of exercise books, pencils, rice and soya chunks.
Just one of those many programs that PMG has countrywide. As we are talking right now, there are so many other places that people are having these charity events under PMG to uplift the livelihood and the challenges of the children that are orphaned and also less privileged.
While the support brought smiles, the need remains overwhelming for more learning materials, better infrastructure and additional teaching staff. Salifyanji's story highlights a deeper rural education crisis in Zambia, where distance, poverty and limited resources continue to block access to quality education. Cherish Siwote for Diamond News.
Now, in Mazabuka's Galea compound, a 16-year-old girl continues to suffer from a rare condition as her mother desperately appeals for help to save her life. Doctors at the University Teaching Hospital UTH in Osaka recently diagnosed the teenager with a congenital vascular malformation after years of suffering from hemangiomas. They discharged her last week after confirming that the condition had not yet affected her bones or vital organs. But her mother, Frida Mutuna Mwenya, says her daughter's health continues to decline. Frida explained that she first noticed the condition when her daughter was an infant. Over the years, the swelling has spread to her left hand, thigh, stomach, private parts, and other parts of her body. Now, Frida is pleading with the government and well-wishers to help her daughter access specialist medical care abroad.
itandizeni kuni vantu vachifuna navutika UTH kunichosa mali zauti yachoka nezoona tikapenda kwa zako pa babu ino mwana pole.
She could not hold her tears. This is the mother of a 16-year-old girl from Kalea compound in Mazabuka district of Southern Province, suffering from hemangioma, a condition that began in infancy. She has made an emotional appeal to well-wishers for assistance in seeking specialized medical treatment abroad. Her daughter was recently diagnosed with congenital vascular malformation at the University Teaching Hospital UTH in Lusaka, where she was admitted.
Panabwera vanichosa vantu napogwira inekwanja palibe tandizeni kuni vantu vachifundo apenanga ngereko out of country kwaenda vatandizako UTH swapa nsaina mwana ali munyumba achosa chabe blood nakoenda kwa soba tandizeni kuni vamene muniperera kuchifundo navutika nikaingiwa na kunkala lokupeza koini yokuti mwana aje kuli tandizeni kuni vantu vachifundo vamene munipera kulira kwanga nakuvutika kwanga itandizeni kuni vantu vachifuna navutika UTH kunichosa mali zauti yachoka nezoona tikapenda kwa zako pa babu ino mwana pole atendani kunyumba so napochika pano vanisoba nichabe naebe kunyumba mwana.
According to the mother, the condition is deteriorating, with blood continuously coming out from the girl's leg.
Mali zauti banakambati veni niyo broken ka isepano pa UTH stunga kwani ise na blocked so na timu mwantu na papata kulibe kamene munga ende atikulibe enda nchabe kunyumba na papata amene mamverako kuvutika kwa mwana wanga na kumuona mamene adili vienda pasogolo mukombo uoneka matumbo yaoneka but UTH vanichosa naso banakoenda ini.
For now, the mother's only hope rests on the support from well-wishers and government to help raise financial resources needed for her daughter's treatment. Helga Chibwe, Diamond News, Mazabuka district in Southern Province.
Thank you, Helga, for that report. Now, firewood traders along New Kasama Road in Lusaka have expressed concern over the future of their businesses as climate change threatens the availability of firewood, traditionally used for funeral rites. Phil Sambo, a long-time firewood trader, says he's aware of the impact of deforestation on the environment, but remains conflicted as his livelihood heavily depends on supplying firewood for funerals. Mr. Sambo further explains that while traders mainly rely on fallen trees to sustain their stock, this practice is becoming unsustainable as demand continues to rise. Meanwhile, Media Network Action on Climate Change, MENAC Executive Director Kennedy Piri notes that shifting environmental priorities and potential regulatory changes now put the sustainability of this cultural practice in question.
Most homes in Zambia commonly use firewood for cooking, and when death strikes a household, tradition demands that fires are kept burning continuously for 2 to 3 days. During this mourning period, family and community members gather around the fire, offering comfort and solidarity as the logs burn day and night. But as climate change tightens its grip, firewood traders along Lusaka's Kasama Road are becoming increasingly worried about the future of their businesses and the cultural practices that depend on them. Phil Sambo, who has traded firewood for years, says while he understands the dangers of deforestation, he is torn. His livelihood largely depends on the steady demand for firewood at funerals.
Uribe ebeko mzacho sama nani ba mariro nambiri beti nani mangana mariro nai mangana family party that's kuti tengo ngati batulesa titikazigulisa so na mitengo za zambo tengo zambo cha za mitengo za pa nyumba futi again kuti ngati isa destroy mitengo za pa manyumba pacha zangala tikuli uribe azangala nayo.
Sambo adds that although traders mainly rely on fallen trees to maintain their stock, this source is becoming unsustainable as demand continues to grow.
Maenda tenga musaka so she vatumira kwa phone chimtengo chagwa uku tifuna manga ko nyumba pa tifuna tsapo chimtengo ichi twantawatanzirako so she twachoza cha chimtengo twabwera twatantika pano so she ngamwe maonera vechitika pano.
Meanwhile, Kennedy Phiri, Executive Director of Media Network Action on Climate Change, MENAC, says shifting environmental priorities and looming policy changes could soon challenge the continuation of this tradition. He stresses the importance of government investment in alternative firewood solutions to preserve both cultural practices and the environment.
We do recognize the critical role, that firewood, traders play in communities. In our country, especially for traditional funeral customs, and other, gatherings, in terms of, making the firewood available, for these, or such events. However, as the climate crisis worsens, deforestation and unsustainable firewood, harvesting pose significant environmental risks. And therefore, as an organization, we want to advocate for sustainable energy solutions, that ensure livelihoods are maintained, as well as protecting Zambia's our forest, to support these traders in transitioning towards eco-friendly and economically viable alternatives. We want to suggest introduction of energy, clean energy options, supporting the adoption of efficient charcoal, for instance. These are charcoal briquettes, solar cookers, improved biomass stoves, that reduce environmental, impact.
As the fires of tradition continue to burn, the question remains, can Zambia keep its cultural flames alive without fueling the destruction of its own forests? Elfimwale Shampande, Diamond News.
And that note brings us to the end of tonight's edition of the Diamond News Desk at 8. Before we go away, here's a recap of the top stories. Zambian government and former President Edgar Lungu's family resolve a funeral dispute. Final arrangements for state funeral and public viewing have been set. Poor roads and lack of clinic force Masabuka's Chisika residents to rely on traditional remedies. And ZRA seizes over 40,000 litres of smuggled ethanol in Livingston and prevents 1.3 million kwacha revenue loss. Well, that's it for now from the Diamond News Desk. This has been Mutinta Chisika. Thank you so much for joining us. Good night.